Based on my observation, I've seen many different marketing of the latest and greatest fitness fads that come and go. However, there is one exercise form that has maintained a consistent format that has not changed much since its creation back in the 1920s. What is that exercise form? Pilates. Now, why is that? I'm Sam Lloyd, host of the Red Chair Live podcast. My next guest is one of the best Pilates guru and instructor in her business, Claudia Fink. Welcome to the Red Chair Live podcast.
Thank you.
And just to let our listeners know, Claudia is stuck in Canada because the coronavirus.
Right.
So this is impacting everybody, folks. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. What you have to do is basically try to find something else to do when you cannot do what you normally would be doing.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yes, it'll take time. You'll definitely eventually get back to
routine.
Right. Now, your background. You currently live where?
So I currently live in Italy. I would say that this is basically where I am right now, but I travel a lot, and I'm also, so I'm Italian, but I'm also Canadian. So I try to spend some time in Canada too, where I have my children and some of my personal life is in Canada too.
Okay, now how did that come about where you got two dual citizenship? I assume you married somebody Canadian, or what? How did that?
No. I actually moved to Canada many years ago, and I didn't think I was going to be in Toronto for a long time. Well, I was actually more like west of Toronto, but it's the same. It's a GTA. Okay. It's the greater Toronto area. So I came for work. I was with my ex-husband at the time, and I didn't think I was going to spend more than a year or two. And then actually that's not what happened. We stayed longer and longer, and we had work permits.
Oh,
and
okay.
So we had work permits, and basically our immigration lawyer, who was the one providing us with those permits, she's the one who suggested from day one really to apply. And we procrastinated a little bit because we really weren't sure, and then we eventually did it and got the citizenship. Yeah.
Oh, this must have been a while back, because it is difficult trying to get a work permit in Canada.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah,
okay.
Become a little bit different. But I mean, a lot of the things were in our favor too, because we already had jobs, and we also spoke English fluently, and we passed our physical test, and also I speak French fluently. So it all adds up. It gives you more and more points, and also depending on your background, so your degrees and all that, it also adds up.
Okay, awesome. Now the $1 million question. How did you get into Pilates?
So I've always been a very active. So as I would say that if in those years we had labels, I would be probably identified as a hyperactive child for sure. But in those years, number one, I still think that in Italy we tend to use labels a little bit more carefully than in North America. But even though I think that in those years it wasn't something that we would think, and because we didn't have phones, like mobile phones, right, and things like that, we tended to be able to use our energy in a lot of outdoor activities.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And I also had older brothers. I had, I'm the youngest of four, so I have two brothers who've always been very active, and I literally just wanted to be like them.
Okay.
So I was a tomboy pretty much, and I copied everything that they did, and did a lot of different sports competitively, and of course had injuries and had back pain. And I went to a physiotherapist, and that was actually not in Italy, because again, I basically have been traveling since I was 13 years old. And I
Wow.
went to a physio who had a little Pilates studio, and I was intrigued. I was really curious, so I started the classes there, and I loved it. And I realized that it was actually making me feel good, that it was giving me what I needed outside of my normal trainings. And at the time I was playing water polo, so those trainings were very intense. Like I used to, you know, swim and swim and swim, and then do practice and scrimmage and then games every weekend. So I was in the water at least 4 hours every day. And coming from a lot of other sports, you know, when I was younger, and also sports where I fell a lot, obviously my body was not in, you know, always in great shape. So I started those Pilates classes, and I immediately fell in love because of the variety. I have to say that I was also a gym rat before that, and I did yoga too. I did many years of Iyengar yoga, and I loved any physical activity. But what I liked about Pilates was the variety. That basically,
Okay.
I guess I also had a fairly okay instructors
Okay.
that changed the repertoire and changed the exercises every time. So I fell in love, and I basically took my first teacher training course at the time. And then I didn't quite like it too much. My questions weren't answered, and so from there, I moved to what was called at the time Stop Pilates, which is Merrithew today.
Now,
And
now, now, what were those questions? You said that there were some questions that weren't answered. What were
oh,
they?
well, you know, I just don't like when, and this is something that I obviously do when I teach myself. You know, we learn from our students. We learn from the questions the students ask,
Yeah.
because there are two different scenarios. One scenario is this person is asking that question because I wasn't clear enough.
Right.
So, I mean, of course, if 9 people out of 10 understood it and one person didn't, then you obviously know that you were clear, but one person has a hard time understanding. But if the same question comes, you know, often, then you know that there's probably something that you missed in explaining. And
Right.
the other issue is also that you always need to teach at the level of the people that are in the audience. You
Oh,
cannot, you know, you have to adapt yourself to their needs and to their level of understanding. And also when people ask you a question, it's totally okay to say, well, I actually don't know why, but I can find out and let you know. What happened in my first training, and I do not want to say, of course, which
yeah,
school it
right. Yeah.
was, right?
For my sake,
When,
please.
yeah. So every time that I asked a question, the answer was because that's how it is.
Yeah.
And you don't you don't exercise, or you don't sit in a specific way. You don't do a specific movement just
Right.
because. And unfortunately, that's what happens when people follow a certain, you know, routine and a
Right.
certain type of exercise without asking questions.
Okay.
And that is not okay with me. So, you know, I remember there were some exercises that were performed in a bit of a ballistic way, so
Mhm.
which means that you're basically pulsing
Okay.
while you're doing the exercise. And I was asking, why are you pulsing instead
Yeah.
of like holding the position? And the answer
Right.
was, because that's how it is. Well, yes, it is true. We do follow a
Okay.
repertoire, and we do follow the teachings of Joseph Pilates,
Right.
but the good and bad thing about it is that really anybody can use the name Pilates nowadays, because
Yes.
it wasn't a trademark. So he didn't register that name. So anybody can use it, which is maybe a bad thing for him, or for the legacy that he may be wanting to leave. That I'm not too aware of that. I really don't know what was his final goal.
Right.
um, and maybe we all created this huge Pilates empire without it being his goal anyhow.
Right.
So who knows, right? But the other thing is that the good thing about it is that because it's not a registered name, so we can use it and we can evolve from that. And I think we should.
Yeah.
Often bring the example of swimming. Swimming is 4 styles. Nobody has invented a 5th one. It's the same ones. However,
So
you can,
why?
yeah, but you don't swim now today. You don't swim like you swam in the 40s. It's a
Right.
completely different approach. And
Yeah.
even you don't swim today like you swam in the 80s.
Right.
So things have to evolve. And I think that it only shows that we have made so much progress in the way that we know the body nowadays that you cannot compare it to the knowledge that he had in those years.
Yeah.
And of course he was a great pioneer for sure. He invented something amazing, but it was a form of movement, and that's what it is. It's not, it's not a miracle. It's not something that we can sort of drop on every situation and say, oh yeah, you have this and this pathology, do Pilates. No, that's not exactly how it is.
Now, you stated that, you made a statement that Pilates is a form of movement. Now, one of the things that I've observed, especially in the US, people kind of, one of the big question is, what's the difference between Pilates and yoga? Because when you look at the form, it seems kind of similar, but you're like,
No. Yeah, well, I don't know every single type of yoga, and there too there are so many different ones,
hundreds.
Yeah, so I cannot really compare to all of them, but if I compare it to for example, Iyengar yoga, which is the one that I've done, that I've practiced for a while, it's quite different. Pilates is more of I think it's a breakdown of a dance routine, which is maybe not exactly what Joseph Pilates came up with when he first created it, because he had the idea of basically a bed, which is the reformer, and springs coming from the sort of like, post-war, or while he was a nurse during the war, to rehabilitate the soldiers that were injured, which was a great idea because it is a very modern concept to try and rehabilitate our body right away, even after a traumatic event. So it is a very important fact. But then from there, I think when he came back when he moved to the States, when he was in New York, and he had all the people that were around him were dancers and choreographers. So I think that he then continued to develop the exercises, and he took inspiration from them. So he took inspiration from their moves, and when you look at it, so it is true that the true Pilates is more of a dynamic sort of like routine. The fact that it has been broken down by certain schools to make it approachable for the common people is basically you cannot really see the end result, which we see in our method. You see it more with some of the intermediate exercises, and especially with the advanced exercises. But at the essential level, you can't really see that, because all the exercises have been broken down to new exercises that were not in his repertoire. So basically, going back to your question, whether it's similar, no, it's not the same concept, except for the fact that we focus on our body and that we try to connect. It's body and mind. It's being mindful. It's being aware. All of that, yes. But other than that, no. For me, like in Iyengar yoga, I remember the most important part was meditation in the pose. So you basically reach certain positions and you hold them statically to achieve a certain meditating mood or mode.
Okay.
While in Pilates, it's more of a form of exercise. And if you keep the flow, you see that it is one sort of move that goes into the other, and it's more, I would say, dance based.
Okay.
Especially, as I said, when you get to the intermediate and advanced level. And also the principles are quite different. Of course, every school also has its own principles,
Yes.
outside from what Joseph Pilates principles were. Then we have also our own, but it is quite different. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things, like I just started Pilates, but one thing that is very, very for me for now awkward is the breathing, how you breathe during the motion. There's
Yeah, and
a
that's
lot
the
of
other
experts that can't
thing.
breathe
That's the other
exercise.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I find is a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
And I actually think that, again, those methods that are evolving from their own
Right.
principles, and I'm talking about even the method that I represent, I think that they've become aware of how ridiculous that is,
Yeah.
because it is okay to obviously be aware and to be in charge of your breathing pattern, but it is not okay to literally have an inhale and an exhale for every single like little inch of your body that
Right.
you're moving. That makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
And when it's actually dictated with such a military sort of like input,
Right.
it's way too much,
Okay.
and people get confused. And it's funny that people don't realize that, which I think you only need to have a minimum of common sense to understand this. If you are bombarding a person with the breath pattern
Right.
all the time as a very important sort of like a primary
Yes.
super important thing, that's what that person is going to do. That person is only going to focus on the breath pattern, and that person is going to lose everything else, which is we're trying to make them move.
So it
So,
wasn't me because I felt it was like it was a constant trying to concentrate breathing more, and then you just like okay, you just get lost. Okay.
yeah, and the problem, and you see, I feel bad for you, because
Yeah.
I know how that feels.
Yeah.
And this is something that I honestly stopped doing already. I don't know, like at least 8-10 years ago for sure. And it is unfortunately a very common mistake that instructors make, because it's also, it depends on who their teacher trainer was and
Right.
how that teacher trainer actually has understood the principles. So it's a problem of interpretation and
Right.
communication.
Okay.
Everything is often a problem of interpretation. We think that we are putting our attention and our focus on something in good faith, but really the message that goes out there is, oh, that's what we have to do, it's imperative. So now when I teach, I have to start with the breath pattern. So inhale to lift your arm, exhale to lift the other arm, inhale to move your toe to the left, exhale to move your toe to the right. That is ridiculous, because it actually stops the movement.
Right.
And it
Okay.
is very, very unfortunate that this is the message that goes out there. And then again, when I try to re-educate people, students who've maybe come from other schools and they're not used to my way of teaching,
Right.
they again misinterpret what I'm saying, and they think that I'm saying that the breath pattern is not important. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that, again, we're moving.
All
And
right.
we're moving with a flow of our breath that is supposed to be normal
Or natural. Right.
and natural. When
Right.
we walk, we're probably moving more. When we're walking fast because we are running errands and we're late, we're probably actually moving everything in our body way more than when we're doing abdominal preparation. And yet we don't think about how we need to breathe because we're breathing naturally. Of course, that breath pattern is supposed to happen in the right places, and in the rib cage is supposed to move in a specific way and all that. But it's not by dictating an inhale and an exhale every second that is going to change in somebody who actually has trouble expanding the rib cage because their fascial system or something else is actually blocking it. So it's not by us, imposing that on a person that is going to happen.
Well, that's one of the things that I've watched a lot of Pilates programs. Your classes and your course that you teach on the Instagram. My opinion is you're one of the best teachers that explains things in a simple way that people can understand, and explain why certain phenomena are having phenomena is happening while you're doing the exercise. Most of the Pilates teachers, like you said, it's just boom, 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 do this, do this, do this, do this, and there's no
Yeah.
explanation. So,
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I really thank you for that. I try to make people think. I try to make people independent in the way that they're thinking, and it is important to know how the body functions. And
yeah,
once you know how the body functions, you realize that a lot of these things that are basically just you know I would say literally just things that people are listening to, because they don't maybe have the right background to understand that that's not the way that the body works. Then they believe it. So they believe in a lot of lies that are out there. And I think I wrote it in the questionnaire. The good thing about it is that yes, you've believed in lies, but now you can find out that there is a whole different truth out there. And that is as exciting as as taking a course to become a Pilates instructor. I think that it's great that anybody can attend courses to become Pilates instructors regardless of the background that they have. I think it's amazing to see, and I've been teaching for so long, and I've seen so many people coming from so many different backgrounds, and it's extremely exciting, and at the same time interesting to see all these different people succeed in what they're doing, and it's awesome. However, when I haven't really seen many people with a strong background in anatomy, biomechanics, and especially physiology. So that's why they fall into these traps very easily,
right,
because they can be told whatever and they will believe it.
right,
And it's the same. Like, I don't understand much about cars. When I go to the mechanic, I will have to believe what he says
right.
because I don't know anything, right?
and
And that's the problem. Like, I think we need to be more knowledgeable about everything, so that we can be more aware of when people are saying things that make absolutely zero sense.
right.
And unfortunately, that's what happens.
And I believe that's why that's the main reason why it seems like every 6 months you see this exercise fad that comes, and there's no explanation why, but everybody jumps in, and after a year falls. But
That's a very good comment. And
yes,
I'll tell you what, the other thing that I've noticed in all these years, and I think I was like that too many years ago, is that people need variety and people need new things,
yes,
because they always it almost feels as though, regardless whether something is working for you or not, if there is something else out there that you could try, why not? Which is fine, right? Which is fine.
reactions. Last year it looks better. Such a
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my God, that must be better. But the thing is, and I guess I used to be like that too, because I
yeah,
remember my classes have changed completely. Now I don't teach classes anymore like I used to, because now I'm an osteopath, and I try to basically focus on that and treat patients. But I still run master classes, and I still kept a couple of favorite clients.
okay,
um, but my classes are so different. Like, I remember up to 10 years ago, I loved using a lot of different props, a lot of
right,
different tools, and I can still do that because
right,
I enjoy. But really now I stick to the simple things. I realize that the simple things are the ones that work the best with clients.
right,
And sometimes, many times, I've had one of the reasons why I've also obviously searched outside of the Pilates world is because quite often Pilates doesn't work for a
right,
lot of people. Pilates is not the right thing for a lot of people. If you cannot move, Pilates is movement.
Right.
So if and if you cannot move, then you can't do it. And if you are,
Right. Okay.
you know, an elderly person with a lot of injuries and a lot of conditions, health conditions, it's good for you to move. It's good for you to actually decide to go to a Pilates studio and move. But probably there will be less, you know, Pilates,
Options, yeah.
real Pilates repertoire to be done on that person. We
Okay.
need to do something else.
Okay. Now, since you've been in Pilates for a very long time, what was your biggest challenge that you faced when you started your Pilates business?
What a
Oh,
tricky question. Oh my
yeah.
God. Do you really want to know what it was?
Yes, please, please. Because I could just imagine, back then it was still a, new field, and I could just imagine. I don't know about the U.S., but in Canada or Italy, it must have been a huge challenge.
You know, it was actually envy. My
Really?
Yeah, my biggest challenge was the fact that there were so many people there envious of the fact that I was bringing. I know it's so ridiculous. I
Really?
think,
Explain that,
yeah.
please. That is
Oh
fascinating.
my God. I can't believe you're asking me that
No.
question. Uh, so, what happened? Okay, I wonder if this person will ever actually listen to this podcast and realize that I'm talking about her. Um, so basically, what happened was that in 2006, well, even a little bit before that, about a year before that, I decided that I wanted um, to to go back to Italy and to open my business. And I at the time I still had a family, meaning I still had a husband and two kids, and the idea was to do that. However, that sort of story went down the drain. So in 2000, actually in 2009, when I opened my second studio, it
Right?
was already that basically I was divorcing. But
Yeah.
in 2006 and 2006 is the year that I started to run courses in Italy, in different places. I think I ran 3 courses.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I ran one in Milan, one in Rome, and one in the south of Italy. And then I was basically slowly getting all my thoughts together to open my business that was going to be both the distribution of all Merrithew products. At the time, the company was still called Stop Pilates, but shortly after they changed the name to Merrithew, and Stop Pilates is one of the brands of Merrithew.
Oh,
Merrithew is
okay,
the
okay,
company.
okay.
Yeah. So basically the co-founders and co-owners, Lindsay Merrithew and Moira Merrithew, but her name was Stott before. So the company used to be called Stop Pilates, but then it became Merrithew. And so I became their license training center for Italy. I became their license training center for Italy, which means that basically I have the license to train and perform the exams towards the certification of the students for Italy. Then in 2010, I think I also opened a satellite in Belgium for the LTC, so for the License Training Center.
Okay.
And I also was a distributor. And what happened was that in Italy, there was already, there were other methods that
Right.
were sort of expanding and that were flourishing. So there was an Italian method,
Okay.
and there were some other foreign methods, a couple of American methods, and they were already there, established there since I think at least the 90s.
Okay.
So some people who kind of um, that were affiliated with these methods, I think had an idea in the back of their head that eventually, you know, one day what they could do was to bring the method, so to represent my method, Merrithew, Stop Pilates, whatever, in
Yeah.
Italy. So when they saw that actually I was already doing that, when they saw that I was already an instructor trainer, I was already an instructor trainer for all the repertoire for mat and reformer, for Cadillac chair and barrel, for injuries and special populations.
Right.
So basically, my train was already going, and it was, about to arrive to the final destination station. They did not like that. And when I say they, I'm talking, of course, specifically about women. Some women.
You can
Yeah.
stop right there. I understand.
Yeah. So that's when the trouble began. And people just, without even knowing me, people, again, some women, really mainly, I have to say, at that time, it was just one.
Okay.
But then probably later on, a lot of other things sort of developed from other people, because the more students you train, the more you will find that there are some that appreciate it and some that don't, and the ones who don't, they will always find something negative to say.
Okay.
So that's unfortunate, but that is human nature. And human nature is also, I guess, envy and jealousy. So what happened was that there were emails sent out right and left to try to boycott my courses.
No, really?
Yeah. There were things sent right and left. And the funny thing is that these people should know that because of how interesting human nature is.
Yes.
These people should have known better, and they should have known that, again, you cannot trust your friends, you cannot trust your enemies, but you cannot trust your friends either, because those friends were the ones who actually forwarded those emails to me.
Oh.
So no matter what happened, I somehow always managed to be informed about it.
Okay.
So I kind of knew what was going on. And it's kind of interesting, because then you see these people, you see these women, they come to you with a face, with a mask.
Right.
And you know that this is the person who has tried to basically murder you. And it's like, wow, that's interesting. Look at you and how you can look at my face. And of course, I never said anything. So this person doesn't know that I know. And the other people also who tried other things don't know that I do know, but I do. And I honestly don't care. I couldn't care less when it happened, and I still couldn't care less. I continue in my journey. I continue in my focus, which is I love to teach people, and I love to teach people all the knowledge that I have. Maybe some of it is even wrong. I don't know, but no matter what I learn, I immediately want to share it. My idea is always to share it. So it was disappointing. They also, emailed head office with some crazy things, lies that never happened. But luckily for me, because head office, because I used to work at head office, they knew what is my code of conduct, and they knew absolutely that they didn't need to believe any of that. So it was, not.
Well, the thing that's so powerful is, based on that trial, one of the statements you stated you just have to ignore people. That's the strength of people that are trying to get ahead. There's going to be a lot of haters out there, but the reality is you have to ignore all that like you did and just move forward.
I am very competitive, and I come from, and I think that I admit it, I am very competitive. Most of my drive is because I want to be the best at what I do. And because I was competitive in my life, and because I've done a lot of different sports that were single sports or team sports, I have to say I love team sports, because you share that responsibility, you share the success with others. I like to share. I like to win, but I also like to share. And so that was my thing. Of course, so that was one aspect of, that was kind of challenging. The other challenge was also the, finding for someone who, because I never really had my adult life in Italy. So, when I say adult life, I mean, of course, I was often on vacation in Italy in the summer, but I didn't have to deal with the different, offices and with the bureaucracy in general in Italy. So having to do that, I kind of, realized how complicated things can be in Italy. Like, things that shouldn't be complicated become extremely complicated.
Okay.
So there is another saying in Italian that we have, I can't remember what it is, but something like we have offices in Italy just to make things complicated. How to make a simple thing into a very complicated,
Good thing.
yeah. But it's a great country, and I don't regret what I've done. And yes, there were moments where, of course, I missed North America, I missed Canada, I missed how certain things are done. In Canada, I think the first couple of years I was complaining a lot, I was whining a lot, and that taught me also, to stop complaining. So when I stopped complaining, things started to get better and better. So you always, you always learn something.
Yes, that's the key thing. That's funny. I mean, your story about kind of reaffirms there's I think three other situations where there's a fitness course run by females where it's the exact same story of this. it,
Yeah.
so it must be across the entire industry where if you have a bunch of females, it just creates it on this.
Yeah, females are quite interesting. I
Yeah,
read something a while ago. I think they can be your best friends and they can be super loyal,
yeah, yeah,
and they can be your worst enemies.
yeah.
And when they decide that they need to destroy you, they
Well,
will do anything.
it all boils down to jealousy. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing how the emotion of jealousy can make people do the most
yeah.
idiotic
I
things.
think that there is something about success in Italy. I have to say that it's I guess it's a different mentality. And of course it is a different mentality about many things. So the good things, there's so many good things that I can say about the Italian society, and being in Italy is wonderful. And especially compared to to Toronto, or to, I can't compare to Canada, because even Canada is a huge country and it's so
Yeah,
different from one city to the next. But if I
yes,
compare Milan to Toronto, number one, even if I compare Milan to Rome, I mean, what I love about Milan is that it's not a huge city.
mm,
Literally, you can get things done there easily. The means of transportation are amazing. Um, it's not, so again, it's not this huge place where you get lost like in Rome or like Toronto. But and even though it's in the north, and of course people from the south will disagree with me because they compare to how people in the south are, but for a northern city it's actually very warm.
okay.
People are warm, they're interested, they're nice, there is communication.
Okay.
It's not like I go to work and that's it. Yeah, I mean, it is the working city in Italy. And I have to say that when I had to accommodate to the way of thinking a little bit differently.
Okay.
And the fact that people want to know about you, people want to be in your space a little
Right.
bit, like there's like, they're very close to you, they
Yeah.
hug you, they kiss you, they touch you,
Well, that's
they want
Italians in general.
Yes, exactly. It's Mediterraneans, right?
Right, right,
Mediterranean
right.
people are more like that. We
Yeah,
are kind of like Mediterranean people. They always want to be in everybody's space, and they always say what they think. If they need to tell you, fuck off, they will tell
yeah,
you fuck off, and five
yeah.
seconds later, they will be your best friends.
Right, right.
Um, so it's like, it's normal.
Yeah,
They like to let their feelings show, which
right.
is a great thing. But the bad thing, the one thing that I don't like in general, that I kind of feel in Italy,
Uh,
is that when you're successful, you don't get necessarily other people to be proud of you. You
yeah.
don't get that, but you get envy. And I think that it's not as bad in North America. I think
I don't know. I think that's universal. I mean, it's the
it's
same.
probably universal. Yeah, you're
It
right.
may not be as that. That's pretty much everywhere. I mean, I've experienced it, and then just observing other people that become successful. It's everywhere. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
that
you're probably right.
psyche,
It's a
something about.
pity.
Yeah, it
It,
is. It's very sad. It's like
for me, look, what I've always like, in every single thing that I've done, when there's something that I love,
right.
and somebody is doing it and it's doing it well, what I tell myself is, wow, look at her or at him. how great they are.
Yeah, yeah,
I want to be like them.
right.
I want to get there, and I will try everything that I can to
Yeah,
be like that. But I will never say, oh, yeah, sure, of course,
yeah.
God knows what kind of help they got. No, I actually think it's a lot, it's hard work. And that's why when I watch sports, I cry. Like my kids think I'm crazy, but when I watch, like I sob when I see, people winning like a
Yeah,
competition, or even people that I know in, for example, in the water skiing
yeah.
business. The other day I was just watching this woman competitor who is French, and she won the world championships when was it, last summer. I can't remember. I think it was in August. I've seen that video many times. And yesterday I watched it again, and I had tears coming down my face because I know what it takes to get there. It takes all of us so much effort and so
Yeah.
much work. So,
Yes. Oh,
the
yes, it
English
does.
expression, sweat, blood, and tears. It's
Yeah,
absolutely what I had to go through.
yeah.
I had to go through sweat, blood, and tears when I opened my business. My mother was dying. My sister was sick. I was divorcing. My kids were in another
Wow.
continent. I
What?
had it all together, and I didn't give up
Yeah,
because I didn't want to. And it was tough. Yes, it was. And it was tough even to run a business, to travel, to go to
yeah.
conventions all over the world. I presented in Siberia
Okay.
a few years ago.
In Siberia.
Yeah, I go to I don't do that anymore because I can't do that anymore. But I used to travel so much and then go to conventions and
Yeah,
present here and present there and work every weekend. At the very beginning, I didn't have other instructor trainers, so
right.
I was doing every weekend, and I worked every day, 12 hours a day, from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, except those times where I was with my kids. So it was very difficult.
Yeah.
It is still difficult, and I feel that I'm working even more and more and more because it's never enough, because you want to grow and you want to get better and better and better. At least I do. I
Yeah.
want to get better and better all the time.
Well,
So
the big thing that I find in with people that put the amount of effort that you do is that you have a passion for what you're doing. And
yeah.
there's a huge difference between not having a passion, spending 12 hours a day. In fact, we probably wouldn't be speaking right now if it was some 9 to 5 job where you spent that much time. But
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's also a job that is physical, not so much because, again, it's not like we need to do all the exercises all the time. But when
yeah,
I mean physical is that we basically stand most of the time. When I teach courses, I'm standing all the time. I show the exercises, I move bodies, and I talk a lot.
okay.
Um, of course, you might have noticed I do like talking, but the thing is that when
No,
I
I haven't.
that talking a lot also, I had like my tongue, because my tongue was hitting my teeth all the time,
Right.
like or every day for 12 hours, that I actually had basically bruises under my tongue.
Claudia,
I
wait,
had
how do you
ulcers. Yeah,
know?
I had ulcers on my tongue. Yeah, because when you talk, your tongue hits the teeth. And I also had to relearn how to use my voice, because I remember like losing my voice
Yeah.
because I couldn't talk anymore. And you learn so much, and you
That's
learn
incredible. Okay.
you learn how to yeah you learn how to give and when to give, and to listen to the students and to listen to their questions. And it is even, sometimes when I'm exhausted, but I just gather all my energy just because the thought of having students in front of me who are there and they've paid and they want to listen and they want to learn, for me is enough, to make my day. I just love it.
That's a big difference. I want to get to that point very, very soon of doing something that, that type of passion where it's like vacation. Yes, it's hard work, but you have a satisfaction every day that you achieve
Yeah,
something. So,
yeah, it is very satisfying for sure.
okay. Well, we're about close to our time, but one other question I wanted to ask, because your profession and your passion for Pilates, what life lesson can you tell our listeners based on what you went through?
Well, I think again that things always happen for a reason. So um, any challenge, anything that has happened in these years has taught me for sure to lighten up about certain things also. Um, yeah, because I think that sometimes it's really how we want to focus on things when something bad happens, like even now with this virus, or whether it's this or something else. I always try to adapt to the situation and find other things, other reasons to enjoy what's actually happening. So the truth is that slowing down, it's, I wonder if it was again, a sign from the universe that we have to slow down a little bit. So these past few weeks, we've done things that we don't have time to do. I've had time to change and to edit my PowerPoint presentations, because I always do, but I always do it in a hurry because I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. That's the one thing. I don't have time. That sort of mantra is in my head. And so even though of course it's not a great situation right now, whatever bad situation that we can encounter in our life, I think that by lightening up and sort of like, sitting down and saying, okay, what is that? Like, one of my coworkers, I love, he uses an expression. He says la dimensione della tragedia. He always says, okay, what is the actual dimension of the tragedy? Is it really a tragedy? Is it really that big?
I
And the
like
truth is,
that.
yeah, I love that. So I'm thinking, what is the dimension of the tragedy right now? Is it
Right.
really that tragic? No, it isn't.
Right.
So really to lighten up and to move the focus somewhere else. The more we focus on something that is bothering us, the bigger that thing is going to get. So
So I'm going to put you on the spot now. Since you said lightening up, so are you still maintaining this 12 hours a day, 7 days a week schedule?
no, no,
Okay.
no. No, I can't. I try to use the excuse that I'm also getting older.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
not any younger for sure. And I say, I could cope with those heavy, with that crazy schedule.
Right.
I could, I would get off a plane and teach for 10 hours and
Yeah.
then sleep 2 hours. And, we've all done that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all say, oh, when I was in my 20s, I could do this and that. So I didn't go crazy when I was in my 20s at all. So
Okay.
um, I definitely went crazier with my work routine, and
Okay.
that is too much. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's any good. And then you
Sustainable.
get to the point where even if you don't want to admit that you are exhausted, you are exhausted. And I remember like coming home and literally being in tears, but for no reason, just being in
Really?
tears. Yeah, just being
Yeah.
in tears for how tired and exhausted I was. And I don't want that anymore. The
Okay.
truth is, I had no choice. I had to provide for two children.
Yeah.
um, my separation was not a good one, and so I pretty much take care of my kids by myself. So there was a lot of sense of duty also that was in there that made me think, I have to do this, I have to do this, because I need to provide, because I need to generate more income, because I need to make sure that the courses will run, because I need to make sure. Of course, now I don't have that problem anymore. I don't have that urge. I don't have that. And I still enjoy what I do, but I try to give myself a little bit of a lighter week.
Good.
It still does happen that I do weekends, that I do 12 hours on the weekends. It still does happen. Maybe I try, maybe not 12 hours, but 10. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But I'm trying to also change that so that it shouldn't happen.
Right.
But sometimes some scenarios force me. Like right now, I had to change courses and stuff, so it's going to be a bit messy. I will have to teach long days, but yeah.
Well, you might have to teach your next class with one of those biological masks, but you're gonna do it anyway, right?
Yeah, hopefully not. Oh my God. Right.
All right, Claudia. Well, Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy, busy woman, but one of the questions that I asked before closing out, if you had a theme song, what would that theme song be about you?
Oh my God, that's such a difficult question. Ah, I have so many. What is it called? Hold on a second. I need to give you one favorite, right?
Oh, yes.
Um, because I have so many. Because so many songs that we can relate to remind us of so many different moments in our life, right?
Yeah.
I think Titanium right now, probably.
Oh,
Yeah, I
really?
think
Okay. And
Titanium.
who's the art? Who is the artist?
Messia.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, I'll have to listen to that. But okay. But anyway, in closing, we're gonna play that song for you. And again, thank you for your time. And
Thank you so much. I was really honored to be part of this. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for your awesome questions.
also, we do plan to follow up. We'll leave this as a surprise, maybe.
Yes.
But we do plan to have another interview very, very soon if things match up perfectly. But again,
Okay.
thanks, Claudia.
All right. That's awesome. Thanks. Bye.
I'm criticized.